Hello, everybody. Welcome along. And it is another manager announcement video. Again, we knew this one was coming, but let's go into detail on Liam Manning, who is now the Bristol City manager. Let me level with you. I'll always be honest on the channel here. I'm going off to Rotherham versus Ipswich. So this hasn't, as I'm speaking right now, been officially announced, but nothing that I'm going to say will change depending on the announcement. I'm sure we'll get quotes and whatnot from Manning and the higher ups, but I'm here to give you my view on Manning, the manager, and his potential job at Bristol City. So we'll go a bit early, and unless something disastrous happens, this has been very well sourced. Obviously, it's taken a few days to sort because Manning is in a job currently, and I'm sure there's a lot of legal to-in and throw-in and clauses in contracts that are going to need to be met and have been met for this change for Manning to make the jump from Oxford to Bristol City. By the way, Oxford currently in second place in League One. They're over the fabled 2 points per game, 32 from 15. But ask Plymouth, Ipswich and Sheffield Wednesday fans from last season. League One is absolutely savage, and 2 points per game didn't actually mean automatic promotion last season. But what we can say for absolute certain is that Manning has very much turned Oxford around from near relegation, really, towards the end of last season into a real viable looking automatic promotion challenge. We'll get more into Manning's career and his CV and what that might mean for the Bristol City job in a second. But just talking about the Championship, it's just, I keep saying it with every hire, getting younger and younger and younger now. And I'm sure someone can add up the average age for me of the Championship managers. But with Schumacher and McKenna and Russ Martin and now Manning, Danny Roll, Joe Edwards, who we've done a bit on going into Millwall as well. Liam Manning is 38, but he's been in the game a fair wee while as a manager already. And it was that MK Dons team, wasn't it, in the 21-22 season that Liam Manning took to third place in League One, 89 points. Wow. And lost in the playoff semi-finals. In fact, I was at the return game, excuse me, at Stadium MK to watch a rather park the bus, fair play to them, display from Wycombe Wanderers. Look, who knows whether MK would have beaten Sunderland's side with Ross Stewart and Alex Neil, got them on a hot streak, didn't he, towards the end of that season in the final. Who the hell knows? I don't. But big sliding doors moment for MK. And there's lots of caveats here that we have to kind of listen to when we talk about Manning at MK. Maybe his run at Oxford has kind of debunked some of those, but they always come up. The first is that Russell Martin, who we'd mentioned, who was there before Liam Manning, set the tone and set the pattern of play and should be given some credit, perhaps. But Manning was certainly in charge for the entirety of that season. When did Russell Martin even do a game? I know he walked right at the start of the season to go off and do the Swansea job, but hell of a turn, that 89 points. The other is this whole, I don't know, Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, Daniel Farker, Emi Buendia thing, because Liam Manning had probably the best player in League One, didn't he? He had Scott Twine banging in tons of goals and assists and worldies and free kicks and whatnot from outside the box. So you get a couple of arguments against Manning in terms of that season. Whether they're right or wrong, we'll never know, because there isn't an alternate reality where Russell Martin didn't set up that MK team the season before, and there isn't a reality where Liam Manning didn't have Scott Twine. But look, he needs to be given an immense amount of credit. And well, MK, I made a note, actually, are now 12th in League Two, because the following season, after the sale of said Scott Twine and Harry Darling, the centre-back, went to Swansea with Russ Martin, essentially lost his two most valuable assets there in terms of the sort of balance sheet. And I think there were some loans that it was just a huge, huge drop-off. And believe me, because I was working for the ITV show last year, and as part of my gig, I was listening to all of the press conferences, and he just felt like he had the rug pulled from underneath him. Manning, he was trying to say the same things and do the same things and give the same messages, but the team just absolutely stank, didn't they? MK, and I mean, there's been this age-old thing, I don't know, to become a video about Milton Keynes Dons, about the stadium and it not being full and other teams going there and loving this beautiful bowl and turning up and winning, and certainly looking at the home record at the start of that season. Maybe that was a thing, but you'll get some people, and it is a fairly silly take, will say, oh, Manning was a one-season wonder. He had Scott Twine, and look what happened the following season. That's probably stretching the point, even though some of it might be true. And you'll get apologists the other way around. Manning was absolutely brilliant and none of it was his fault. Again, that's stretching the truth, but some of it is sort of true. But that was the kind of high watermark. Although you say high watermark, Oxford are currently second, aren't they? Which is higher than where MK did ultimately finish. Well, I think they were second for a fair wee while in that season. Who was it? Rotherham and Wigan took the top two spots in the end. But maybe Liam Manning's reputation and debunking certain and they're unfalsifiable arguments. We can't say anything, and we're going to find out for certain what the truth is at Bristol City now, aren't we? But Oxford stunk last season, and they were going in free fall. A gigantic winless run going right through to sort of, must have been spring. Forgive me, I don't know the exact date when Liam Manning came in. And he could not get them to start winning. And that run continued and continued. And you did genuinely think down the bottom there, they could go, 4 go down in League One. But he did turn it round at the end of the season. It would have been a massive shocker if Oxford had have gone down, given who went in the end? Morecambe and Accrington and Forest Green and MK Dons. Yeah, they were the... and that was a shocker enough. But he's certainly turned it round this season. I was at Pride Park. It's the only League One game I've seen this season, in fact. And that Oxford side, given a pre-season and given Manning some time and a transfer window and all of that good stuff, they looked really good. And I thought it was 2-1 in the end. They were certainly good value for their win. And it was like the old MK team. It was no Scott Twine there either. Nicely methodical, good threat from wide, very sort of deliberate in-game stuff with switches of play and whatnot that were being called from the touchline. So his stock is back high again, isn't it? Hence, he's in and he's got this job. Let's be quite fair about this. If at the end of that MK season where they finished third, Manning had got a championship job, no one would be batting an eyelid about it. He was one of the hot prospects, the hot topics in terms of a championship job then. And look, you play the long game, I guess. Let me just reduce the light on this video as the sun comes out. Oh, there you go. The sun's going to naturally do it for me. There we go. But yeah, now the reputation seems to be somewhat rebuilt for Liam Manning, and he's going to make the jump. And you can have your view about somebody making the jump. Obviously, Liam Manning replaced somebody who made the jump as Russ Martin. Use whatever words you're comfortable with. Left. Let's just say left. Left Milton Keynes for Swansea. And Manning's doing this with Oxford now. What I will say is I don't begrudge anybody being ambitious with their career. Obviously, that has a consequence. Maybe he won't be very popular at Oxford. Maybe not. I don't know. You tell me. What you can say for certain is he's leaving them in a decent spot, in second in the table. And maybe Manning's learned the hard way. With the best players being sold at MK, maybe you do need to be a bit selfish, because you never know when it's you that is going to be kind of left holding the baby. And maybe in some ways you can't blame him for, okay, I've got an opportunity to jump to the championship where I've never managed. And we'll talk about Bristol City and what that job actually sort of represents and their place in the food chain. But it's a decent job as well. And could he have got there with Oxford? Yeah, probably. Might have been there by the start of next season. How long would it then take Oxford to be at a level where Bristol City are? I don't know. Still a couple more years. So maybe he's jumped 3 years of career trajectory in one day by jumping from Oxford to Bristol City. If we've got any Oxford fans watching, I'd be interested on your take. How do you feel about it? When you put aside the emotion of essentially being left in the lurch by a manager, which is never nice, is it? Do you blame him for making the jump? And as much as it's hard for us to do this thought experiment, what would you have done in the same position in terms of, getting a better job and presumably what we'd imagine, I haven't seen the contract, what we'd imagine would be a nice pay bump as well. So Bristol City, I think it's a great job, Bristol City. Now, we talked a lot when Nigel Pearson went on the channel about the trajectory and going up into the Championship and maybe overspending, maybe not having a plan B for if plan A didn't work. Go figure, what is a plan B, Ben? You know what I'm saying, though. And when the wheels kind of did come off, it felt like Nigel Pearson had been brought in to straighten everything back up, get the club viable, maybe. Again, is that the right word in terms of financially? And my conclusion was that's kind of what he's done. It's taken a couple of seasons there, and okay, we put up the graphic. Still not very financially viable at Bristol City. Lose money hand over fist in each of the last 10 seasons. I think an average of like 20 million plus a season. It's in my notebook somewhere. But they've never been in breach of FFP, have they? So, look, it's just the Championship where owners like Steve Lansdowne are expected to fund massive losses in the hope of getting into the Premier League, where apparently you still lose a load of money, even though your turnover goes up by a factor of 10. And I think this has always been the thing with Bristol City, hasn't it? That it's a big city, it's a nice stadium, there's huge potential there, but neither them or their neighbours, well, that's kind of irrelevant for this conversation, have got close to being a Premier League club. That's a lie, actually. No, Bristol City did get to the playoff final, didn't they? Back in the early noughties, I'm going to guess. 2008, 2007, I can't remember. Lost to Hull in the final. Must brush up on my playoff final history. But certainly, been down to League One since then. And 8th place, maybe, in 18-19 is the closest they've been since. So, I'll come back round, I promise. If Nigel Pearson was brought in to stabilise Bristol City and Liam Manning is being brought in to move them forward now as a 38-year-old with presumably 20, 25 years of decent career left if it all goes well for him. That seems to be fairly joined up thinking, doesn't it? I know the Bristol City board and the higher-ups are getting the ire of the Bristol City fans at the moment in terms of where is all this going. But if the Bristol City higher-ups now give the fans their Liam Manning, and Liam Manning has some kind of backing to push, get into that top half of the table. And as I always say with the Championship, if you're in the top half of the table with 10 games to go, you're probably a decent run away from 6th spot, because it's just always that tight with a 24-team table and going down to 6th for that bottom playoff position. So, I don't know. It seems to make some sense to me. Manning is obviously untried at Championship level, but, the style he certainly played in that really good season with MK and with Oxford would seem to fit in with the general picture of what's going on in the Championship. We've praised the Bristol City regime over the past 3 years. Well, go longer than 3 years, actually, for producing really good young players. And they do still haven't sold all of them. Obviously, Semenyo and Scott had to be cashed in on to kind of right the wrongs of the maybe some bad spending, one or two bad transfer windows and the COVID losses as well. But they've got Bell now and Conway. They have kind of pushed the boat out a bit with a few transfers. I think there were decent fees paid for Dickey and Atkinson, who, funnily enough, both played for Oxford. So did Mark Sykes, actually, didn't he? So there's plenty to admire about Bristol City. Squad-wise, first team-wise, are they a team you would expect to be going and attacking the top 8? I don't think so right now. I think they've had better squads, certainly going back to that 18-19 season and maybe before that. Obviously, it helps if you can borrow Tammy Abraham, doesn't it? Whatever season they had him. But I'm sure the Bristol City fans would also say, yeah, but Ben, look, that kind of crippled us for a few years. And we know in the Championship, everybody rolls the dice. It's up to you whether you roll the dice or not. But if you don't win, there's a danger that welcome to League One and FFP with Reading and Derby and Sheffield Wednesday, a lot of clubs who rolled the dice and very much didn't win. You know what the consequence is. So I think I like the hire. I don't blame Liam Manning for making the jump, but I also understand the Oxford fans might be a bit grumpy about this, that, you know, they gave him the chance to get back in. It's gone well and off he goes. But I will throw in the caveat I said earlier of, well, this is a guy who had the rug pulled from under him at MK with his best players all being sold. So it does cut both ways. That is obviously no consolation to the Oxford fans. What Bristol City fans can expect is very studious, very calm, typical of these this kind of new breed of manager, a Schumacher or a McKenna, those sort of type. Expect them to change style a little bit in terms of playing through the thirds and all these buzzwords you're going to hear. Let's be quite frank about it, though. There's winning football and there's losing football, and these things do tend to go very cyclically, don't they? If I've said that word correctly, and it does feel like we're very much in a attacking and possession cycle, and we all know what happens with cycles, that if everyone starts doing one thing, it's the person who does the other thing that ends up bucking the trend and winning. So I'm sure we'll get a counter-attack team or a long ball team be successful soon enough. It's probably not going to be Bristol City because we think they're going to be, sort of nice and easy on the eye. I don't want to be a tactical snob here. As I said earlier in the Millwall video, I don't care how a team plays. You know, it's you have your philosophy and you stick to it. Sorry, I'm having a nightmare with the light here. The sun has just decided to come blazing through the window. I'm not losing the lights. I think I'm rambling, and I think I'm coming to the end of what I wanted to say about Liam Manning. I think it's a sensible hire on paper. I think he can get a trend up. Is it going to be immediately, fireworks? Probably not, but I think Bristol City have been playing the long game for a few years now, and they will continue to do so under Liam Manning, who I assume will be given a fairly lengthy contract given his age and given the brief there. So I like it. I think he'll be okay. I think Bristol City fans might need to exercise some patience if you're expecting screaming, ranting and raving, throwing all the chips in. Not going to get it from Manning. It's going to be very calm, very considered, and there are going to be some buzzwords, and there's going to be lots of talk of process and things of that nature, which we all know what football fans are like. If they're winning, it'll be genius, and if they're losing, it'll be David Brent all over again. But he's certainly got form in those two sort of iterations of his career this season at Oxford and that one great season at MK that he might be winning. So let me know what you think in the chat. In the comments. I'm off the cuff today. As I said, we're going to go off to Rotherham later, so no time for vast editing. I do really want to hear from Bristol City fans. I do want to hear from Oxford fans as well, if there's anybody watching. So do get involved in that. And if you want to see my take on the Liam Manning's football at Oxford this season, you can click up here and you can see my vlog from that game. That was 2-1, wasn't it? I hope I haven't got that wrong. Darby 1, Oxford 2. Good luck to Liam Manning, and get your thoughts down in the comments.